Welcome everyone to Textiles and Tea with the Handweavers Guild of America. I'm Kathy Group. I'm the Advertising Marketing Manager, and I'm your host today for Textiles and Tea. Today's Textiles and Tea is sponsored by Tabby Tree Weavers. Check out their wonderful weaving supplies. They've got everything from needles to looms at their website, tabbytreeweavers.com. We welcome questions today. We usually take them the last 15 minutes of the hour. And if you would please use the Q&A button and not the chat. And that way we'll make sure we get as many questions as we can. Today we have Gene Shepard as our guest. Gene started rug hooking in 1998 and it has been his passion ever since. He describes himself as a self-taught artist who hooks by ear. You know, some people play piano by ear. He does rug hooking by ear. He designs patterns, he dyes his own fiber, develops tools, and teaches. Gene has done commission works for individuals and for museums. And his work has been seen in a variety of places, including Rug Hooking Magazine, the Association of Traditional Hooking Artisans newsletter, and a celebration of hand-hooked rugs, which is a compilation of an annual juried competition. As a way of developing and refining his own artistic journey, Gene has written 3 books. He's also written and appeared in over 125 instruction videos on a variety of fiber topics. He is a prolific blogger with thousands of blog posts on topics concerning the techniques, tools, inspiration, and experience of the fiber arts that he loves. We are so excited to welcome you today, Gene. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
It's fine. It's very good to be with you.
I'm glad. Most important question we always start off with is, what is your favorite tea?
Well, and that's maybe the hardest question for me to answer because I am a prolific tea drinker and I get teas from all over the world. But when I'm having a small group of friends over for a fiber fest in my studio, 9 times out of 10, we'll pick Rishi's, Earl Grey Supreme, and then we add just a little bit of dry lavender to it before we brew it. And since we're having a little event today, I thought that's what I would do so I can be with my friends.
Wonderful. Dry lavender. I'm going to try that. I'm not
the Rishi tea has strong bergamot flavor, of course, the Earl Grey Supreme, but it also has some citrus highlights, and that lavender, just a little of it, just gives it a little bit of a floral boost that's quite nice.
Wow, we're getting all kinds of good information today. Well, you have been involved in a variety of fiber art. So let's talk about your first fiber art you got involved in, and how did you get started with that one?
Well, I was about my 4th grade year in grade school, and I started making pot holders with nylon pot holder loops on an old red metal toothy frame that we had in the house. The reason I did it is because it was there. In doing a little research, I have a brother who's 5 years older than me, and he, I think, got that as a gift when he was a kid, and he made lots of pot holders and gave them away. I suspect me coming along 5 years later, my mother was maybe running out of pot holders and needed some more, or she just wanted me to be busy, whatever. We had the frame, I got to making them, and I went into production, and I didn't give mine away. I sold mine. I got whole cold hard cash, which maybe answers what's the difference between craft and art. My brother did craft. I made artistic pot holders. And it was odd, somewhere in that whole pot holder experience, we had a school trip, a field trip to the local historical society, and which sounds so exotic, but it was just really 4 doors down from where I lived. And I remember being in there and wandering around, but I went up to the 2nd floor. I walked into a bedroom, and in the corner, there was a handmade barn loom that was made by original founding settlers of my hometown. And I thought it was the most wonderful machine I saw in my life. And I think weaving imprinted on me at that time.
Wow, a barn loom. That's always amazing when you see one for the first time.
Well, and I didn't see another loom in operation for years after, but I never forgot that. As a matter of fact, I go visit it occasionally when I'm home. It's still
It's an
there.
old friend.
Yeah, it still has the same dust on it, I think. So,
Well, you've not had like a formal education in textiles, but you've said that friends have taught you, and more importantly, you went out and investigated and researched different things, and then just taught yourself these different fiber arts. How do you think that's impacted on your art career, that you kind of went out and found what you needed?
well, I think it's made me become self-reliant. It's not that I was ignoring people or refusing to go out. I just didn't have any resources.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough occasionally to maybe get a 5-minute tutorial here or there on something. And fiber arts sort of clicked with me. I sort of had an intuitive bend towards it. And I think if you get going with one fiber art and you like it, you're more likely to kind of roll over into another fiber art. And so having to sort things out my own way, because I just didn't really have any other options. And you've got to remember, when I was in the 4th and 5th and 6th grade, that was a long time before there was an internet. I didn't have ways to research things. I didn't know where to go. So I even got to the place where later on I would just get colored string, and I'd make 3-dimensional designs with string and wire. And I just would make things up because I was drawn to fiber art.
That's wonderful. It's in your blood.
Yep,
Well,
I
it
think.
seems like no matter what path you have taken in your life, you always seem to find a way to teach. And we have a picture of one of your weavings that was a group project. One, I wish you would tell us about this project. It's fascinating looking. And then the other thing is, what is it about teaching that gives back to you? Why is that your passion?
Well, I'm glad you picked this picture to show, because I have really warm feelings about this. I'm very active in the church that I attend, and I'm known as sort of the weird fiber guy in that church. And so we have a big yearly community thing, and at different times in the past, you'd find me in a first century set, like drop spindle making yarn and things like that in Bethlehem while the shepherds are leading people through. Well, in 2019, they came to me and said, we need you to do something for that event. We're not going to have the historical thing anymore, but we want you to do something fibery. I said, well, for how many people? They said, oh, you'll probably have 2,000 people come to your event. I said, what's my budget? Oh, you don't have a budget. You just do your thing. So I thought about that, especially since we were trying to reach out to children. And I've had a long history of being able to teach fiber arts with children. And so I decided to use the idea of recycling as a hook. You go talk to kids about fiber art, they don't know what you mean. But if you start talking about recycling, and we're going to take old clothes to make a rug or do something like that, then they begin to understand that. And so I had 4 components for that event, and one of them was a weaving component. And I've got plenty of stuff to make a warp, and I did that. That piece, by the way, is 10 foot long, finished. And we use selvages, because I have garbage bags full of wool selvages left over from dyeing. And because I wanted something splashy to go in, we put out a call to the men of the church, and they started donating their ties. And we asked for colorful neckties. And long story short, I had to train 4 or 5 people to learn how to weave in order to help me. Because when you got a couple thousand kids coming over 3 nights, and we had 3 other components, I just simply couldn't do all of that. So I had to teach a cadre of people to learn. And so when kids would go to the weaving thing, because we wanted anybody to participate as long as they could stand there, an adult would be actually working the foot pedals, the treadles, and doing the beading. And they would pick out the ties. We had them prepped for long ties and short ties. And of course, we would be talking to them. And they had a whole narrative, the adults did, about we're weaving. This is an ancient art form. Oh, your pants were woven on a loom. Your shirt was woven on a loom. All of that. And aren't the colors pretty in this tie? A professional designer picked out the colors. And so we're doing all of that. And we're overlaying the two sides in the shed. And then they put their hands on it. We beat it. And well, how do we hold it in place? Well, we change the feet, you know, all of the things that you do to get kids involved. And at the same time, we'd be talking about, boy, the grandpas of our church really love us and they care about us because they've given their ties so we can make a piece of art to hang in the church. And that's precisely what we did. It became quite a story rug because I chose the ties that would hang out the end. And, you know, some of them had sports figures on it and teams and people were fishing, and you could tell a lot about the men of the church as you started looking at those ties. And it was just an amazing experience. But I've got to tell you, it was crazy. While we were weaving, next to it, we were doing a needle punch with a bunch of leftover rug yarn that I had dyed. And there were like 10 kids punching over there. We were making Christmas ornaments with leftover wool. We had a gallery, and fiber was just fast and furious. I'm still shocked that some kid did not get woven into that tapestry and is not hanging today. But I just loved it because it puts all the things that I like: inspiring kids, talking about fiber, a group activity, history, an intergenerational piece. One of my favorite things that happened, I noticed on the second night, there was a man standing over for the longest time, just watching it with a kind of a deadpan expression on his face. And he looked like he might be from the country of India. I went over and introduced myself, and I asked him if he had any questions. And he said, I wasn't planning on coming here tonight. I don't come here. I live across the street. My friend brought me. He goes, I know everything you're doing. He said, my family are weavers. My father and mother were weavers. My grandparents were weavers. My great-grandparents were weavers. My he goes, everybody in my family were weavers. We've always been weavers in our town. He goes, I need to go home and call my father. And, you know, I patted him.
That gave me goosebumps.
I patted him and I said, oh, you must come over to my studio. We can talk about weaving anytime you want. Just call the church, ask for the crazy weaver guy. I'm the only one. I said, you know, and I've not heard from him again, but I just love the emotions that fiber art can work. And I like it because it creates memories, not only in kids, but in adults, because that piece does hang now in the church. And when we're not in COVID lockdown, it's not unusual to see kids going to it and talking about it and touching it, or to see adults going and actually start crying because that's grandpa's tie. Grandpa's no longer with us, but yet, you know, he's here in that art piece. So I just think it's a fun story. And I'm glad my church.
It's amazing.
Yeah, my church allowed me to do it.
It went from just, you know, an event, do something, to this wonderful many aspects event.
And I get kids now, their parents call me, they want to come over to the studio and we do punch, we're doing rug hooking, or maybe they'll bring a group over and I'll do a little dye class for them and learn how to mix the colors. And, you know, it just allows us, I think, to create a rich tradition and a way to interact and talk together about something that, well, you know, on me, I'm still working off of experiences that I had in the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. They still illuminate me and empower me. And so I like to be involved in creating those kinds of things for children. And often their parents then get involved too.
Well, that's amazing. Well, a while ago, you mentioned that you dyed the wool for the rug punch. And that's leading into my next question, is that you are a dyer, and we have this wonderful image of your wool hanging on the line drying. So why did you start dyeing?
Well, I hooked a rug all by myself, and after it got done, some people started seeing it, and I got a commission for a 5x7 rug. And I had problems with my first rug because I couldn't find colors that I wanted because I just garage saled. And so when I got this commission, it demanded that I have a certain kinds of colors, and I sort of had some standard about it. And while I said I never ever want to dye, the commission changed my mind, and I had to dye in order to not only, because I couldn't afford else, but I probably wouldn't have got the colors that I wanted. You can tell I'm not color challenged. I like color. And so that compelled me to start dyeing. And that's been a very liberating kind of an experience. I've enjoyed that.
Well, you're definitely not color challenged. As a matter of fact, I love your amazing use of color. And in this next image of the Australian keet, it's a parakeet that you made. This is just some beautiful, intense colors. So I was curious, now that you are a dyer and you've done a lot of dyeing, do you think those experiences have changed how you see and how you use color now that you've had the dye experience?
Yes, I'm sure that's the case because, anything I can think up, I can pretty much dye on my own. And lots of times I don't. Sometimes you'll get an idea for a design and then you'll go to the dye pots to make wool for it. But at other times, I'll make wool and then that will draw me to the designing table to design something to use it. So I kind of go back and forth. But I think my ability to dye, and I lean towards rich colors. That really has empowered me and made me much bolder in my color choices.
Oh, really? Okay.
I like my wool and I'm proud of it. And like that parakeet, for example, I could have put a traditional blue background behind that parakeet, but it wouldn't have looked like anything at all. I could have even put kind of a little sunset thing, but it would have had so much movement going on in the back that it would distract it from everything. And I loved that rich magenta color. And you notice it's the same color used the bottom, the sides, and in the lighter area, it's just different concentrations of it. And there was an almost fiery orange with it. Well, it's the same color of dye, only dyed over both natural wool and then a light yellow, and to get that kind of an orangey effect. They're married, they go together, but I don't think it would have had the hot intensity of as a piece without that sort of orangey counterpoint to the other magenta. So, and of course the birds were pretty rich chroma anyway, but I do things that I'm passionate about, and I used to raise parakeets. I might have 20 in the back or 60 in the back. I raised parakeets, and that was one of my actual birds. I love that bird, and so if I'm going to memorialize it in a rug, I want it to stand out. Go big or go home.
That's right. Well, let me ask you this: when in the course of a work day or a work week, how much time do you think you spend dyeing?
Oh, you talking about during a pandemic or when things are normal? Let's let the last several months just not be counted.
Okay.
I travel quite a lot,
Mhm.
and I often take a lot of wool with me when I go places, and I do ship wool out, and I usually have a lot of students coming in and out. So I'm dyeing almost every day. Back in the old days, I go through several bolts of wool in a month, and I do subscription wool, and I do special orders, and I work with students. But when you're not traveling near as much, I don't do that. But it's nothing for me to get up in the morning. If I'm in a dyeing mood, I might dye 40, 60 yards of wool in a day. Now I'll have everything soaking. I'll have pots on the stove or pans on the stove with water that I can just go out at 5 o'clock, make my tea, turn on my stove. I have a kind of a restaurant style kitchen that I put in my garage. So 6 burner stove and a restaurant sink. And so I'm serious. I don't mess around dyeing in like little jars.
I love it.
I've even gone to metal workers, and I had one pan. It's so big that when it's full, it goes over 4 burners on my restaurant stove. When I've got it full, I can't pick it up and move it. You know what I mean? But I can do a lot in that pan, and so It's like, if we're going to do it, let's get serious. Let's do it right. It's cheaper to go with commercial grade stuff than mess around with
I think that's your middle name now. Go
it.
big or go home.
Well, yeah, I lived in Texas for a while. What can I tell you?
Well, you, oh, sorry, I'm spacing out here. You studied to be a minister, right? And for 40 years, you were in the ministry.
In one form of ministerial work, yes.
Right. And so how did you blend your spiritual life with your artistic life? How did those mesh for you?
Well, the first answer to that is everything I do is spiritual. All right, you know what I mean. Everything. If I do something that can't be put in my spiritual column, then I don't do it. You know, I like that verse that says, "Whatever your hand finds to do, do it as working unto God, not unto man." So you know, that's sort of my personal mantra. That said, I particularly think artistry, artistic things go together with the spiritual side of our life. And of course, I believe they show forth that we're created with the spark of God in us. You know, he's the great artist. He splashes color across the canvas far better than we can, you know, of this world, far better than we can do. I often have students say to me, now I want flowers in this rug, but I don't want those bright flowers that you do. I want to do marigolds, but I want them in the real colors of marigolds. Well, have you looked at a marigold lately? Do you not understand how bright that is? So I just think it's an homage to God when we work our artistic side of life, and it shows that we've been given that creative spark like he does. So in that sense of the word, whatever I do is that, and I don't have very many interests outside of when I was working as a minister. I did that, and then I did art. I mean, I didn't do anything else.
That's a lovely concept. I love that. That is just wonderful. Well, I want to jump a little bit to teaching, because you started teaching in 2010. So you were way ahead of the curve.
On the internet.
On the internet, I'm sorry, on the internet. Yeah, you were way ahead of the curve of everybody else. And first of all, my question is, what led you to start using the internet when most people hadn't thought about it or just wouldn't do it? And then the other question is, do you think now that it's becoming so commonplace, are you doing anything different now that everybody's on online teaching?
Well, first of all, you got to remember, I'm a full-time minister. I was a full-time minister for 31 years, and then I for 9 of the years I was a college president at a Christian college. So I had very busy schedules, and I only had so much free time, so much vacation time, etc. So I had to create my art on my own time a lot. And actually, I started teaching on the internet more like 2005, because I had a free blog in 2005 to 2010. And I blogged 7 days a week, educational stuff, just because I wanted to see if I could come up with something clever to say 7 days a week. And it was like you know, some people do Sudoku or whatever that is, and I was trying to teach something because I couldn't go. That's how I connected with people. I might do something in my town or do something, and I would do things, you know, with children, like enrichment things, enrichment fairs, or I'd do after school programs where I would come in and do things. But once I started really getting into rug hooking in particular, I'd been a serious weaver for several years, and I worked kind of alone on that. But if I was going to reach people in general, the only way I could do it was the internet. So I did that. And it was in 2010, after I'd written my first book and I had done 2 videos for Rug Hooking Magazine, I wanted them to make more videos, and they were a little skittish about that because people weren't doing it. I live in Southern California. I hired my own crew. I came in, I started shooting videos because I thought that is a way that I can communicate with people. and I have a place to do it. I have a studio where I can do it. And I mean, they're not like going into a professional studio, of course, but and my videographer might have been standing on my table shooting down over my head onto my stove as I was dying. But you know, we put together really good quality. They were people from the industry, and we put together really good quality things. And I think there's 85 of them on the Internet Rug Camp now, and maybe another 4 or 5 that are Zoom related. And we've lost 10 or 15 that got eaten up with a computer crash or when I switched from one webmaster to another. But I have done so many videos, I can't quite remember what videos I did. I've done them for myself. I've done them for Rug Cooking Magazine, my publisher, and I, but it's been really, really good. I like it, and I can communicate with people all over the world, and I don't even have to leave my house.
Well, I'll tell you, when I first found you, one of the things that struck me was your wonderful videos, because one, they were very well done and they taught well. You know, some people can watch a video and not really get much out of it, but your videos were excellent.
Well,
Excuse me.
I am an educator. I mean, I was trained as an educator for theology and things like that. But basically what that means is I've been trained to teach difficult concepts to people, whether they're a religious concept or it is an artistic concept. And I've been trained to do that. I know I'm comfortable with people, and I think, you know, we're talking about a giftedness for fiber arts, but I know that I can do those kinds of things, and it's a natural thing for me, and I want to communicate with people. So as far as different goes, yeah, it's been a really crazy year. I don't do as I haven't been shooting new videos very much because I'm kind of videoed out. I've done most of the things that I want to do videos on once or twice, and you know, I've done a lot of videos. But I'm enjoying going in with guilds and groups like this in almost a format very similar to this, where I put together some sort of a PowerPoint lecture or a presentation, and where it's sort of moderated, and maybe we take questions 3 or 4 times in the middle, or we wait to the end. And the reason I like it is because with most of my videos, they're there 24/7. You watch them when you want to watch them. But with this, at least, I've got a live audience, and I have a way of being able to visit with some people and see some people and actually take their questions. So I think that's an aspect of Zooming that I quite like. And, you know, I'm probably going to, I've been developing some things that I use with groups, and I'm willing to develop other things depending on the needs of a particular group. So, and I will look forward to that. So I think I'm going to do more of that sort of thing. I would like to get back to traveling, but I've also, you know, I hate to say this, there's been a lot of downsides to the pandemic, but I've also liked being at home. I've certainly got a few unfinished projects done. But I could stand a few more months of pandemic to get some other things finished.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about your work. I love your work. And you do a lot of pictorial work. And so we have some images. We have 2. One is the pictorial one, the rooster, and the other one is this wonderful pattern called double cross. Now, do you prefer pictorial over the design patterns? And how does one win out over the other? How do you choose?
Well, here's what I prefer. I prefer whatever floats my boat at the moment. All right. And both of these rugs have deep, they resonate with me. First of all, one of my regrets in life is that I've never been able to raise chickens. And I'm thinking of remedying that maybe soon. And so I love chickens. I also like color. And I like and I like geometrics. And so I have been dyeing a lot of those big pieces that you showed at the beginning on the line. I call those dump dyes. And I wanted to develop something that would allow me to use those. So if you cut them one way, they go from dark to light usually. And obviously that's how the tail feathers and the body of the rooster were done. But if you cut them the other direction, you end up with about 4 or 5, 6 values, dark to light, long pieces. And that's actually what I did the background with. So this is a very fun thing for me because it's something I like. It allows me to use colors that I like, and it's just very personal. I do like geometrics. I get mad at people that poo-poo geometrics and rug hooking as they're a second-class citizen. I think it actually takes an awful lot of skill to make a good-looking geometric, and I am sort of a technician. That's one of the things I'm known for. I'm pretty fairly precise. And this is called double cross, like you said. It's actually twice as long as it is here, and I normally those light colors that outline those little squares and rectangles, most people do them in black or dark red or something, and then put all their colors in the other. I just went the other way around because I thought it really highlighted the line in the design. And the other thing about this geometric, I've actually put the background in because it's an homage to weaving. It's sort of like I did a rug warp and I used my mixed darks on the two sides, and then I had some leftover lights and put them in the middle. That's what it looks like to me, and it's kind of an oddball homage to that. And so most of my rug hooking has some sort of a sentimental tie to it, or something that makes me want to do it, or I link it to a person. And if it doesn't have meaning for anybody else, it's got meaning for me, and that's what makes me happy about doing it.
Absolutely. Now, you have written 3 books,
Right.
The Rug Hooker's Bible, The Prodded Hooking for a Three-Dimensional Effect, and Prepared to Die. Now, Prepared to Die is how I learned about you, is that we sold that out of the office. And at the time, it was just about the best book out there because it really taught you how to do dyeing. I loved this book. So how did you choose these 3 topics?
Well, the first book was the Rug Hooker's Bible, and if you read the small print, you can see it's the best from 30 years of Jane Olsen's Ruggers Roundtable. When I became a rug hooker in '98, shortly after that, I met Jane Olsen just by chance at a hooking event, and then I moved to Southern California, and she was 45 minutes away. We became good friends. She ended up joining my church, as a matter of fact. So, and we started team teaching together. I would do programs for multi-ethnic children, and then their parents would want to learn. So Jane would come in with me, and we would maybe do a class in English, Spanish, and Korean. And, we had a great relationship. And she had done a little self-produced flyer every, I don't know, 2 months or 5 times a year, something like that, where she'd promo a new pattern. Jane was very much a traditional, narrow cut, 6 value swatch rug hooker. She was an old school rug hooker. No, she would do other things, but her go-to way, she usually would tell you what swatches to use and how many to buy, and she'd sell you the pattern, she'd sell you the swatches, and then she'd give you a few techniques. I realized that while I loved her and I liked her designs, I just approached things completely differently than she did. Okay. And I would maybe take a cabbage rose of her. Instead of getting a 6 value swatch, I'd maybe make 12, 15 values from scrappy wool, and I'd go around from pinks and dusty roses and corals all the way to some beigey pinks for my lights. And we maybe ended up creating great pieces, but we did it in different ways. So I pitched her the idea. I said, look, you're going to stop doing this, and the nuggets in your roundtable are so good. I'd like to edit that and then expand it. And she let me do that, except to do it, I had to pitch it to Rug Hooking magazine. Now, they would have never have probably taken me on for a first book at that particular time, but I flew out to Pennsylvania and talked with them, and because of her backing, we did it. And so that book is very much, it covers all aspects of rug hooking that I could get into that. And sometimes we'll say, well, Jane does it this way, but Jean does it this way, because I'm more of a wide cut, more of a scrappy kind of a hooker. She was more traditional. And the other thing that there were 2 other things about that book that were really important, I think. Up until that time, if you wrote a book for Rug Hooking magazine, you had to send any picture you want. You had to send the rug to Pennsylvania, they would have a professional shooter shoot it and send it back. The only problem was that they might have been a good photographer, but they weren't a rug hooker. And I didn't want to use 30, 40 pictures for my book. I wanted to use 275 or 300 pictures. So I would, after I sold them on it, I said, I'll only write this book if you let me take my own photography, because I might want to have 10 sequential shots on a technique. So I guess chutzpah counts, because I was able to get that. And after we got the deal, I said, now you really need 2 videos to back up this book. You need to get into the video world. And they, I guess a gracious mode that day, because they ended up doing that, and I did those 2 videos. And lots of people had told Jane they used her stuff like a Bible. Of course, I'm a pastor, so the idea of the rug hooker's Bible seemed like a perfect thing. So there's a lag time. And by the way, that's been reprinted 5 times. That's unheard of for Rug Hooking magazine book. It's still in print. It's been a very popular book, and people use it all the time. So there's always a lag time between after something is done and your next project. And so while that was when I got rid of it and turned it into them, I started dabbling around with realistic 3-dimensional effect. There's a style of rug hooking, an old style, much older than regular rug hooking, called proddy. It's a kind of a shaggy thing from England primarily. Goes back to the Middle Ages. It might even go back to the Vikings. And I wanted to learn that. And then a lot of people were taking those little rectangular pieces and they were making kind of choppy little flowers. And I just thought, I want to see if I can create something that's realistic. And I wanted to make a rose that really looked like a rose, a daisy or a sunflower that really looked like. So I started working on that. And then after I got some of this done, I went back, and it took them a little while to decide, but they decided to go ahead with this. And this time they just let me produce my own video out here. I wrote the script, I did everything, I hired the people, and we just produced the video out here, and it was included with the book. And it's been reprinted twice, and it's a niche market kind of a book, but I like it because I like the ability to not only give a nod to the traditional, like the proddy rugs, but I like coming up with the realistic 3-dimensional thing. Well, by the time I was ready to do Prepared to Die, I didn't have too much trouble convincing them to let me to do that, because I'd written 2 books for them already, and they were successful. But the Prepared to Die book, it took a lot out of me. I spent 2 years writing that book, and I'm glad you said what you said. There are 19 chapters in that book, and I wrote it so that the first chapter is the foundation for the second, and 1 and 2 are the foundation for 3. And you can just progress through that. And if you'll buy like a bolt or 2 of wool and just go through that book, every chapter has sort of like a basic technique. And then I give 2 or 3 or 4 suggestions about how to play with that technique. So the naming of the books ought to be easy. If the Rug Hooker's Bible fits me, Prepared to Die ought to fit me as well. But what some people don't realize, there was a King James verse of scripture said, prod one another onto good works. And so I like prodded hooking for a 3-dimensional effect. I wanted to really prodded hooking for a good effect, but they wanted to do the 3-dimensional effects. And then for the die book, I did a 4 hours, 3-volume set of 4 hours of videos again. So that was a massive job to write that book, get all the visuals, and then dye everything that we filmed in it, and then have things to show after we were done. So, but I'm sort of out of a book thing. They keep saying, would you like to write another book? And I keep saying, let me think about it a while. That took a lot out of me, all of those books.
Well, again, I applaud you, because you were doing a video that goes along with the book. Before that was very popular. I don't know if anybody was really doing that when you wrote those books. So
they weren't.
Cutting edge again. Go big or go home, right?
I know. And like, we have a lot to celebrate here. You know what I mean? What's not to like about color? And I think people are so afraid of color. First of all, I routinely get a hold of people, and I bring out my wool for people, and it kind of scares them to death sometimes because it's bright. I understand that, and I'll look at people, and I'll say, and one of my regular students who's been hooking with me now for several years said the other day, you know, I went back and looked at stuff I was doing before I came, and it's so dull now. And she's come along gradually, you know, and I don't care what people do. I want you to do something that makes you happy. And I might make a suggestion. If you choose not to do that in my class, that is perfectly fine. But if you're hiring me to come in and be your teacher, I at least want to give you good advice. And I want to tell you what I think might be able to punch up your piece. Because after all, we want to create something that has, well, some pop to it.
Well, Gene, one thing I am struck by is how much you give of yourself to the world of rug hooking through your teaching, your writing, and your website. And I say, folks, you have got to go to his website. There is a wealth of knowledge that he's just giving to the community. It's amazing. So, not to put you on the spot, but I am. Do you think that you've changed or had an impact on the fiber art community? I mean, compared to where it was when you came on board and started, because you've really done a lot and you've offered a lot.
Well, you know, that's a hard question to answer. You usually wait till somebody's dead before you ask. I don't know how to answer that question. I've enjoyed what I have done. I'm thrilled that I've got 3 volumes of printed work. I've got all those videos. I'm thrilled that I've been able to interact with people all over the world through the internet. And I have championed bent hooks for rug hooking. I certainly didn't invent that, and I'm not the only person who produces those and sells those. But nobody was really pushing bent hooks, so that makes me happy, and it makes me think that I have some opportunities to share with people and get, you know, make a lasting impact. I hope so. Other than that, you'll have to ask somebody else.
Okay, I will. You can ask me. Now you have talked about being a weaver, so I just want to state that again, that you are a weaver. And now I know the 2 art forms are technically not the same, but what is the common thread for you between weaving and rug hooking?
I started weaving on a floor powered loom in 1973, and I have never given that up. And I used to weave overshot coverlets in 3 panels and do that as commission work. So I am a weaver. Well, fiber is a common thread. Maybe twisted fiber, woven fiber. It's a common thread. A lot of times when I'm teaching children, if I'm like have multiple sessions with them, I will start them out on a nylon potholder loop frame in the first lesson or 2, because I want to teach them weave structure before we move on to rug hooking, because we're putting a hook through the hole that's created by the intersection of warp and weft. I want them to understand what's going together. I dye yarn, you know, I can use yarn to weave. I dye fabric, that's woven fabric. People don't understand a lot of times why they're having trouble with fabric that they're trying to hook, because they don't understand weave structure, and there's a big float here, and when you cut it, it's going to be shreddy wool. And so I like being able to interrelate all of those things, and to me they all kind of work together, particularly since rug hooking, I keep saying I'm going to do this, you know, the backing that I hook rugs on, I could weave that, you know, it's just a tabby weave, and I use a bleach linen for that, but you could do it in cotton, and one of these days I might just weave that just for the fun of it or the heck of it, and to do it. But you know, to me they just all sort of blend in together. They work in together, and dyeing comes alongside of both of those. And sometimes I get tired with rug hooking, and I warp up my, well, I have several looms. A lot of people do a dog rescue or a cat rescue. I kind of do a loom rescue. Sometimes I'll just get up and there's a loom outside my door. I'll feed it and it stays, you know what I mean? But I just get tired of one and I go to the other and it energizes me, and then I go back to the other art form and it energizes me. And so I hope that was an answer to your question.
It was a wonderful answer to my question. We have one more image I want to show, and it's a commission that you did. Now, in talking to some artists, they have a love-hate relationship with doing commission work. How about you? How do you feel about doing commission work?
Well, I started doing commissions, first of all, with weaving when I was doing overshot coverlets. And again, I was kind of in a vacuum then. I didn't have I wasn't teaching or anything. So it wasn't too bad. But if you are under the gun to be creative, to be wonderful, and you got to get it done by a certain time. And I did a lot of those for a number of years. And I decided I didn't like that pressure. So it takes a lot to get me to do it. Let me point out a couple things about this one. I had some friends ask me to do this commission, and some people I know well at my church. And what they commissioned me to do, they sent me a picture of what they wanted. This is 7.5 foot long, and it's about 4.5 foot deep. And they wanted it all done in off-white with just a little blue and back on the very end. And I said, let's have a consult. So I went over their house and I looked at their 2-story cathedral style wall. And I just said, I am not your guy. If that's what you want, I said, I'm a color guy. I think you need color in this room. I'd like to do it, but only if you'll trust me. And they said, oh yeah, okay, we trust you, whatever you want. So this is what I did for them when they asked for all white with a little bit of blue and black on the bottom. But there's some symbolism in this piece. They wanted yarn, and I looked at knotting it and fiddling around with a whole bunch of stuff, and I ended up to simply go simple with this. But there's actually symbolism. I view that family as coming together, and with the father reaching his hand up to God. Kind of think of the Michelangelo with the finger of God reaching out to the finger of Adam, only this would be more of a clasp. And if they had sprung enough more money for the commission, we'd have done it 10 feet tall, and we'd actually got them reaching up to the light. But they didn't know what I was doing till I brought it over and we hung it up. But I really feel good about this, and it works so well. And when the windows are open, the doors are open, it almost moves a little bit, and it's perfect for what they wanted, and they were happy with it. So, but I don't do commissions. I have to have something that really floats my boat. And when they asked me, I said, I can't even think about it for 3 or 4 months. And then after that, I'll try to get it done within 3 or 4 months, as long as you don't bother me. So
now, I think you've said this, but I want to make sure. What was the size of that piece again?
It's on an 8-foot rod. And there's just about 3 inches holding it on each end. So it's 7.5 foot of yarn, and there's a support in the middle that you can't see. So it doesn't.
And it's 5 foot tall?
It's about 4.5 to 5-ish. There's a lot of, I use rug yarn for that. It's got some heft to it, and it was a bear to make, it was just a bear to make. I should have gone with the natural with the blue and black on the bottom.
Oh, no.
I could have done that. I could have done that in the afternoon. But no, I feel.
All right, we got to ask some questions. We're running out of time here. Right. Let me see. Oh, Ruth Brzezinsko wants to know, what kind of brand of dye do you use? Do you have a preference?
I've used all different kinds, but I usually stick with ProChem. I've gone to ProChem.
Okay. Oh, Adele Harvey. Hi, Adele. Wants to know, what was your hometown? Because you mentioned your hometown.
My hometown is Albin, Illinois. It's in southern Illinois, kind of where Illinois, Indiana, and Kentucky come together. And that's where I learned about pot holders. That's where I saw Miss Wiggle hook a rug for 5 minutes. And I imprinted on that, but didn't get a rug hook for 32 years. So.
Well, we were neighbors. I'm from Evansville. You probably know
Oh,
where that
you're
is.
kidding?
No,
Oh, go to Evansville all the time.
it was the only place to go.
Oh, do you miss
We'll
Mac?
talk more later. All right. Adele said that she had a similar experience when demonstrating. A man looking at an 1840s barn loom that she was working on, and he had been a doffer. He looked melancholic. The mills in Maine had closed during his lifetime. So it's true that you can get a lot of these memories and reactions for folks. Do you use woolen yarn or woolen cloth? That's from Sandy Chattel.
Normally, well, I use a variety of things. Normally when I'm making hooked rugs, I use wool cloth. I work a lot over natural, but I also use certain kinds of textures and certain kind of colored things. I can dye red over a yellow cloth and get a different intensity than I'll get by adding, using orange on a white cloth. And I get my yarn spun I mostly dye that for whipping rugs, but I might hook with it as well. I get that from a family farm in British Columbia. And I might put some silk into a rug or nylon, but normally, since my stuff often goes on the floor or it might get thrown on the floor, I try to make the rug with all the same material. If it's going to be a wall piece, then I might, who knows what I might put in it. If it's three-dimensional or something and goes on a wall. But yeah.
All right. On that parakeet, did you do the three-dimensional, or was that the proddy?
There's some three-dimensional proddy. I did a kind of a eucalyptus bark, and there's the little eucalyptus nuts that are sort of a three-dimensional, and then I put little pink flowers that were done. I did not Waldeboro or sculpt the parakeet. I could have done that, but I did not do that. I just did it on those little flowers on either side and the nuts on either side.
Well, this is from Susan Burt, and I have to read it because she's impertinent. She says, this is a highly impertinent question, and I hope you will pardon me for asking. I am a perpetual beginner at rug hooking. Is it possible to obtain a pattern or a kit for the lovely rug on the wall behind you? Susan was interested in finding out about that.
Yes, it comes in several sizes. You can do a pillow size, a table runner, a medium rug, or a big rug.
So go to your website, right?
Yes, it's called Big Mama. A very good friend of mine named Marnie Carden came up with the original design. It was 14 and a half feet long, and she did it for her friend Kate Smith, who was also a good friend. And they let me have the pattern, and I have edited it to get it to smaller sizes. But yes, it's a great rug, and it's a good rug.
There you go, Susan. Go get it, beginner or not. Go get it. What are you looking forward to the most post-lockdown? Travel, to see places, people, teach, explore?
Yes, I'm going to Solder Village in August. If all goes well, that's a big rug hooking mecca spot. I have a lot of repeat places that I go and customers that I see. When I go in August, it will be 20 months since I've been out, because I usually have things in February that are in my studio. People fly in for 3 weeks. And so I'm feeling like I need to get out to some places, and I'm really looking forward to that. I've also been leading tours in Europe, and we've been going around trying to get inspiration, designing rugs while we're out. It's kind of an excuse to go to Europe, different places, but we always design a bunch of rugs. And I would like to get back into that, but we have to have a certain level of confidence before we can get back to that.
Yeah. Okay, Rhonda Schmidt says, can you ask him to explain the technique he uses? I know nothing about rug hooking. Rhonda, go to his website. He explains everything beautifully in all of his videos, and you will be amazed.
Well, the front page of my website has a free kind of tutorial that you can watch. Rug Hooking Magazine has several free tutorials that I've shot for them. And if she can't get it, have her write me and I'll make sure she gets it. You basically go through a hole, bring up a tail, go to the next hole, bring up a loop as you keep on a running strip is how you do it.
Yeah, there's also a wonderful video on Proddy, which I knew nothing about until I saw your video. So go check those out. Carolyn O wants to know, do you make the strips from your wool fabric? How do you make the strips for your wool fabric?
There are a variety of cutters on the market. They're sort of like pasta cutters for wool. And I typically use, out in the studio, I use the Thompson B-line cutter out there. And in my private studio, I use a honeydew cutter. But there are other things there. You can get different heads. Usually if you're talking about an 8 or 6 or 7, it's 8 30-seconds, 7 30-seconds, 6 30-seconds of an inch wide. And they look like a pasta cutter that would go on your KitchenAid mixer, except don't try to put wool through your KitchenAid mixer.
Gail Dixon wants to know, would you say more about the necktie hanging? Did you use rug warp to weave them together?
Rug warp for the warp, and then I used wool selvages, 16-inch wool selvage that I tear off a 1/4 inch. I sewed them together to make, change. And then we just take a piece and we would beat it and put one end to the next pick and overlap and beat it in again. So there'd be, in essence, 2 picks between each double set of ties to hold it in place.
Okay.
That makes sense?
And if you need more information, I'm sure people could email you and get that if they want to try it.
You just say you're a textile and tea person.
There you go.
Then I'll give you priority attention.
Oh, good. Susan Warren wants to know, will you be conducting your rug camps in Cambria again?
No, we were getting ready to have our last one and it got blown out of the water by COVID. And it was going to be my 20th year to do Cambria and we had to cancel, and I'm not going to go back. But I do a thing called California Getaway, and I do it 3 times in February. I have a relationship I live in the resort district, and I have a relationship with a hotel. So people come in and they work with me for 4 days, and I do that 3 weeks of that. But I'm going to be adding more of those because we're trying to make up for some lost time. So I'm not going to do Cambria anymore, but you get a smaller group in my own studio, and they shuttle you over. So it's kind of nice.
Well, Jean, I can't believe it. We're done. We have to stop.
I know.
Let's do this again.
I still have tea to drink and everything.
Please notice my mug. It's Knoxville, Tennessee.
I know.
Because Convergence is going to be there in 2022. I want to see you there.
I would love to go to Convergence. I had so much fun at Reno, and people stop me at Reno and go, I learned how to rug hook by watching your videos. I was so shocked. I didn't know how to respond. So it's funny. I'm going to go.
Well, I've been trying to get him to come for years, folks. So tell him to show up. We want him there.
I'll be there.
All right, good. Thank you so much for being here today. It has been lovely.
I would agree the same way. I've had so much fun. Thank you. I love the weaving community and just the fiber art community in general. It's great to be together with friends.
Yes, it is. What a lovely afternoon. All right, I want to say a special thank you to Tabby Tree Weavers for sponsoring today's episode. Please visit their website, which is tabbytreeweaver.com. They have a wide variety of supplies for any kind of fiber arts. I'm checking out a little weight that you hang on your warp that I've not seen anywhere else. So go to their website and check out all the great supplies that they have. If you would like to sponsor Textiles Tea or your business or your guild, please get more information at our website, weavespindye.org. If the Textiles and Tea is supported by the generous donations to the Fiber Trust. If you would like to see more programming, please support HGA by becoming a member or donating, or both, at our website at weavespindye.org. All of these programs, Textiles and Tea programs, have been recorded. And if you want to watch them again, or you missed part of it, you want to go back, or you want to share it with a friend, go to the HGA Facebook page and you can see all of the Textiles and Teas on there. They've all been recorded. You do not have to have a Facebook account to watch the Textile and Tea recordings. Next week, we have Kelly Marshall, who's a wonderful rep weaver. She does a lot of weaving for home, and you'll love her work. You get a chance to see that. Thank you so much, y'all, for being here today, and I hope I'll see you next week. Happy tea.